Hello modelers, this is the sixth in the series of video tutorials for Gmax 1.2 for the beginning modeler. Our objective in part 1 of this series sub-series is to learn to set up 3 views with Calibration box, and the focus on this in this video will be generally data collection and quality 3 views. Before we go about setting these up, we've got to have some good quality stuff to work with, so I want to talk a little bit about that. And down below the video there's some links where you can go find some of these resources, 3 views, airfoil data, type certificate data sheets, etc. So you can check that out at your leisure. Just as when building the house you need a good set of plans for the obvious reasons, the same way when trying to construct a 3D aircraft in a 3D space using 2D plans. And what I want to talk about is, why are these plans important? Well, obviously if we don't have proper 3 views, and the minimum of which is a top view, a front view, and a side view that all work together, that you're going to run into a lot of frustration. You're going to waste a lot of time trying to get your aircraft built without good quality plans. So what actually are good quality plans, and what kind of plans are out there? One thing I don't want you to get confused with is dimensional drawings. Dimensional drawings are typically simpler. They don't represent necessarily the true shape of the aircraft. They're really there just to portray things like wingspans, fuselage lengths, etc., to give you dimensional data. But the good quality plans that you can model from are going to have certain attributes about them. Let's just talk about that. You can see one here in the calibration box in this on your screen. So let me just pull up something here for you, if I can grab the right one. Here we go. This is the 3 view that I got my hands on after I modeled the aircraft that we're using as an example in this series. And this is a pretty good quality aircraft drawing to be a non-pay or freeware type drawing. And the neat attributes about this, first of all, it's much larger than what you see here on the screen. It's actually more than 2 times wider than my monitor, so you can really drill down to the detail. Secondly, the lines on this, if you just zoom in on one aspect of it here, the lines on on these drawings are thin enough that when you get them into Gmax, they're not going to be so big and fat that they're going to represent somewhere between 2 and 4 inches in width, which makes it kind of difficult to stay true to the model shape. But this is a pretty good drawing also because it has cross sections of the fuselage and of the boom, and it has drill down detail for the top rear of the aircraft, showing the exhaust and the shape of the spinner at the back of the aircraft. So things like that are important. The aircraft has, or the drawing has, center lines on it going down the center of the fuselage. If you look at other parts, you see a center line this way as well. That's important, showing either the water line or, well, in center line in this case. And a lot of them will also show, as this one does, the thrust line from that's running directly through the center of the spinner. So that's really important. What else we hear? Usually scale is on these somewhere, but the reason it's not necessary on this particular drawing is because there's also dimensions on this drawing. So you can validate or verify and extrapolate once you have this basic set of dimensions. For example, if you figure out the number of pixels between this line and this line, and get a pixels per inch or number of inches within 53 feet and 10 inches. You can divide that by the number of pixels and figure out how many inches you have per pixel. And then you extrapolate that to verify the other measurements. For example, the length measurement. Does it jive with the width measurement? The reason that's important is because when you're out there looking for 3 views, a lot of times you're finding copies of copies. And you'll find that people tend to not stay true to the aspect ratio of the original drawing. You may end up with an aircraft, as I did on a previous drawing of this one, that is shorter than and did not agree with the fuselage length drawings. As a matter of fact, it was short by 50 inches. So that's a strange thing. The other thing is when people scan these drawings, if they have the raw drawings, a lot of times they don't get them perfectly lined up on the scanner, and you'll find that the fuselage is twisted up to 1 or 2 degrees. But the scary part is when they're off about a half a degree or a quarter of a degree, and you don't notice it until you get it in the Gmax. Then you got to really work with it to line this up properly, north, south, and east and west. So those are some other things to think about. Also, aside from the top view, front view, and side views, you want to try to have, in some cases, a bottom view. And why is that important? Well, on things like bombers or anything that's got some kind of activity on the bottom side, you'll notice this has the gear doors here, the bomb bay doors here, and back here we have the rear gunner's door. So without a good bottom view, those are difficult to model. You may see them on the side view, an indication of them, but you don't. It's hard to pick up these shapes around these doors. So you end up having to use artistic license, which is okay. Fine, you're going to have to do that a lot. But you also get to see the bottom of the nacelle doors and these intakes on the side for the supercharger or turbocharger, whichever. And here's a scrap view of a ventral gun and the ejection slots for the ammunition after they're expired. So those are some key points about 3 views to keep in mind. Size is another one. If you find a good looking 3 view, but it's only 640 by 480, I can tell you that's not going to work, because by the time you blow those lines up to the size you need to fulfill the drawing requirements of a aircraft with a wingspan of, say, 54 feet, those lines are going to be pretty fat. They're going to be 4 to 6 inches wide each line. So you can imagine the difference if you did worst case on a fuselage. You ended up with a fuselage that is anywhere from 8 to 12 inches too wide or too narrow, depending on how you modeled to those lines. So those are some important points to keep in mind as you're seeking out these 3 views. Now, there's freeware out there, and there's a lot of it. If you can get to the right site, and be sure to check out the links at the bottom in my text to check out some of them. And there's also payware out there, and some darn nice ones. This one happens to be freeware, and Richard did a great job on these. I think I have an example here of, let's see if I can pick it up for you. No, that's not it. Let's see, here we go. Nope, here we go. This is one I use for the Beechcraft D18S, Model 18. This is a payware one that is available out there. Very high quality drawing, and it's very large. I've got it shrunk down to get on this video, but you can see you've got good quality cross sections. You got dimensional data everywhere. You got angles built in. You've got on opposing views, the top view, you'll see angles of the engine where it's canted outward to better handle engine out situations. So there's a lot of things to pick up here and look for when you're going after these 3 views, and it's really worth the extra money if you have the means to go out and purchase these 3 views. It just helps ensure less frustration in the building process, and gives you the kind of quality plans you need if you're really looking to build a quality aircraft. Alrighty, let's see if there's one other thing here for wing roots. A lot of times 3-view drawings will have these, and sometimes they don't. So, but they are available to you. This is a NACA 23,000 wing root drawing, and these are available on the net. You just have to know what you're looking for. So once you find your aircraft's wing type, get the NACA number off of it and just search the net for it, and you'll probably come up with something like this. And these come in varying sizes depending on the aircraft that's using them, the weight of the aircraft and whatever. If it's a bomber, like this one was, it used a 23018 on the wing root, and there's a smaller 23008 for the wing tip, which is a different shape and also smaller. So you need to look for those, and if you also check the links down below, you'll see that there's one link that points you to a place where you can get these and get all the specs for them. So there's another source for you. Let's see, and here's a drawing that had the wing root on it there, which I modeled to, and then it also had the drawing of the flare up against the fuselage. So I just modeled to that, so that made it certainly easy for this particular aircraft. Alright, so that's kind of it for my comments about 3 views. You really need to spend time doing the data collection. 3 views is just a part of it, but it's probably the most important part. The other thing is getting good quality reference pictures, kind of walk around the aircraft pictures up close and personal, so you can see how things like flap hinges or aileron hinges, gear, details look, how the wheel wells look with inside the nacelles, that kind of thing, how rudder hinges are mounted, the rudders are mounted on hinges, that kind of thing, because that just adds some realism to your project when you can model those things in. Okay, so with that said, what we will do next is show you how to build this calibration box. Now, why is a calibration box necessary? Because it helps to validate your 3-view drawings, essentially, and the way you apply them. So it's kind of a double check, and you won't use this throughout the project. You use it basically to get the exterior model components built and in place, cut in your flaps and your ailerons and your rudder and elevators and that kind of thing. Once you get all those exterior parts done, you can essentially delete this. If you ever need it back in a future step, you can always go back and merge it in. But I use the calibration box to make sure that my plans are represented properly in Gmax before I start constructing. And there's a lot of things you can do once you get this in place to validate and verify, because you don't want to go spending a couple of $100 on building an aircraft if the plans are messed up on you, because that just leads to overall frustration. So that's what the part 2 of this series is going to be about, and we'll come back next in the next video, and we're going to build this box and apply these textures. And once we do that, we're off and running. But we got to get these things on here, get them right, validate how they're positioned, validate that, and we can do that with a tape measure in Gmax, validate that everything's coming out just right, even though it fits here. We want to validate that everything looks right proportionally, everything lines up right, and then once that is done, we kind of freeze this so it can't be touched, can't be moved. We can use it as reference, and we can work inside this, and it won't be in the way. It's there to help you. And then later we'll get rid of the box. All right. Thanks a bunch for jumping in. If you have any comments, put them down below, and we'll be back to see you on the next video. Thank you so much.